All right, so ready to dig into this EQAI morning briefing. September 16th today. Robots whipping up guacamole. Bill Gates, all about AI, someone striking it rich. No lottery ticket needed. Even for a Monday, this one's got some head scratchers, right?
Yeah, definitely keeping things interesting.
But let's be real. Who has time to untangle all these headlines, figure out what it actually means? That's what we're doing today. Going past just the surface, digging into the opportunities, and, hey, maybe dodging some pitfalls along the way. Especially for, well, someone like you, always looking to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Now, kicking things off with what looks like, I don't know, a classic tech face-off. Schwab's projecting growth like it's nothing, but Apple may be hitting a bit of a speed bump. Word on the street, those iPhone 16 pre-orders, not quite as strong as last year's model. So is this just Apple taking a breather, or should we be reading the tea leaves here? What do you think?
The thing is, even giants like Apple, they aren't immune to, shifts in the market. Remember all that talk about a potential economic downturn? Well, those lower iPhone pre-orders might be a sign that people are, I don't know, tightening their belts a bit, especially when those older models, they're still pretty tempting, right?
Makes sense. Speaking of big names in tech, Bill Gates, he's all over the news with, well, how optimistic he is about AI, calling it a gold mine, especially for new businesses. But then you've got all those, Gen Z investors. Seems like they're skeptical about anything considered traditional in the market. So I'm curious, is this a generational thing, or is there something more going on here?
It's definitely an interesting dynamic to watch. You're right. AI's potential, it's massive. The possibilities are, they're almost endless. But then there's the flip side. You've got the ethical questions, the potential for jobs being lost, the risk of, I don't know, maybe becoming too reliant on technology. It's a lot to consider. And it's something that younger generations, having grown up surrounded by technology, they're particularly aware of these issues, I think.
Right, it's their world in a lot of ways. Okay, let's shift gears a bit from the digital world to something a little more, tangible and delicious. Chipotle, they're trying out robots to make their guacamole now. Avocado, that's what they're calling it.
Itchy.
Right. Marketing genius aside, it does make you wonder, could this be the answer to all the labor shortages businesses are facing these days?
Automation, it's complicated. Yeah, it can streamline things, make businesses more efficient, even create entirely new kinds of jobs. Think like robotics engineers, AI specialists. But it also brings up those concerns about jobs being replaced, especially in, places like Chipotle, right? Food service. So it's a balancing act for sure, and the implications, they're huge.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. It makes you wonder about the future of work, doesn't it? But before we go too far down that road, let's talk about some of the other big market movers making waves today. The S&P 500 is taking a bit of a breather after, last week's tech rally. But things are heating up elsewhere. Zillow, for example, they're surging, stocks up. And it's all thanks to, those mortgage rates dipping down and the rental market being, frankly, red hot. Which begs the question, does this contradict all the talk about economic uncertainty? It's like, which way is it going?
It's true. It can be confusing.
Yeah, it's wild. You see companies like Zillow, they're soaring, but then at the same time, you've got financial experts putting out warnings about young investors, right? The ones pouring everything into crypto, AI, sidelining those traditional stocks and bonds. Is there skepticism? Is it valid? Or are they playing with fire here?
Honestly, it's a little both. It is refreshing to see, younger generations, they're not afraid to question the old ways, to explore new investment avenues. But at the same time, that old saying about not putting all your eggs in one basket, that still holds up. Diversification, long-term planning, that's key. Crypto, AI, yeah, they're exciting, huge potential upside, but they're also volatile, right? Relatively untested in the grand scheme of things. Those traditional investments, maybe they don't seem as flashy, but they offer stability, that historical context, which is hard to ignore. It all comes down to finding that balance, right? Matching your risk tolerance, your financial goals.
So maybe a blend of both worlds is the sweet spot. Don't just stick with the old, but don't go all in on the new without, thinking it through.
Exactly. And don't underestimate good advice, right? As Ease and Financial Advisor, they can help you navigate this stuff, build a portfolio that actually makes sense for you.
Solid advice, especially with, everything else happening. Oil prices, for example, they're creeping back up again. Jefferies, they're predicting this could push gas prices even higher. And we all know what that means for our wallets, for the economy as a whole. So what kind of ripple effect are we talking about here?
Unfortunately, when oil prices go up, it tends to set off like a chain reaction. Higher gas prices, people cut back on spending, and that consumer spending, it's a huge driver of economic growth. So it can lead to a slowdown, businesses see smaller profits, maybe even have to make tough choices, cutbacks, layoffs, that sort of thing. It impacts everyone in the end.
Makes you think about, remember we talked about Target's holiday hiring plans earlier. Is that a sign that they're confident about the holiday shopping season? Or are they actually bracing for a slowdown, needing more workers to handle, I don't know, maybe higher demand from shoppers who are, well, watching their budgets more closely?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like mixed signals all around, which really highlights the uncertainty, I think, that we're all dealing with right now in the economy. Staying informed, being prepared for things to shift, that's more important than ever. And hey, maybe even get a head start on that holiday shopping, who knows?
Not a bad idea. Okay, before we get too caught up in that, let's lighten things up a bit. There were some, well, how should I put it, intriguing stories in this briefing. First up, Carl Icahn. He just had that legal win against those short sellers who were, gunning for him. Talking about David versus Goliath, huh?
Definitely a wild ride, and it really shows you the stakes, especially when it comes to short selling. Icahn winning, it highlights how important due diligence is, both for investors and for, well, anyone making accusations. It's a good reminder that things aren't always what they seem, especially in the world of finance.
Absolutely. Information is power, but it's also about being able to filter through all the noise, figure out what's real, what's not. Speaking of which, what about those stories about people just, like, stumbling into massive wealth, winning the lottery without buying a ticket kind of thing? Pure luck, or is there some strategy at play there?
I'd say luck favors the prepared, right? Sure, sometimes it's just chance. But a lot of times, it's about recognizing opportunity when you see it, having the, I don't know, the smarts to make a good decision in that moment. Remember Bill Gates talking about AI being that fantastic opportunity. People who are tuned in to those emerging trends, willing to take a calculated risk, those are often the ones who end up, reaping the benefits.
So it's not just like tripping over a winning lottery ticket, right? It's about, I don't know, spotting the next big thing, maybe even that next AI before it blows up.
Exactly. But got to be careful, right? No such thing as a get-rich-quick guarantee. Thorough research, a solid plan. Thinking long-term, that's still crucial. Don't just jump on the bandwagon because everyone else is. Do your homework. Make informed choices.
Words to live by. And as we wrap up our deep dive here into today's EQAI Morning Briefing,
Yeah,
seems like, I don't know, navigating uncertainty, that's the name of the game these days.
for sure.
Tech world's changing, economies sending mixed signals, and opportunity often pops up when you least expect it.
That's the truth.
Which brings us to, well, our final thought for today. We talked about Target, right? Their holiday hiring spree. On the surface, seems like a good sign, maybe confidence in the shopping season coming up. But here's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
Could it be that they're, like, prepping for a slowdown?
Yeah.
Maybe they're figuring they'll need extra hands to deal with higher demand, but from shoppers who are, well, way more price conscious.
Interesting.
It's a question worth, I don't know, chewing on as we head into, the final stretch of the year.
Yeah.
What do you think it all means? Something to keep in mind as you navigate the weeks ahead. And hey, who knows? Maybe it'll be something we unpack in a future deep dive.